Hey, free-to-play gang, welcome back to another video. So, a lot of you guys might have seen me use Eira in some of my live streams, especially for K16. You might be wondering, like, why is it that I'm using her in K16? So, in order for us to understand why I used her in K16, let's take a look at her kit and, what she's capable of, right? So, for today's video, it's kind of like a showcase for Eira, but I want to make it a little bit more informative and not just, like, completely focused on K16 because that is just besides the point, right? What's important over here is the reason why she is useful. So let's take a look at what she's so good for. So I start off with my second skill, right? And what it does is whenever my allies take a turn, or whenever my allies complete their turn, she will gain a little bit of AP. So for example, as you can see over here, she will gain 15% AP every time an ally takes their turn. And then now we use our third skill, which is Sea Breeze Sonata. Attacks all enemies, deals 120% attack damage, inflicts speed down for 2 turns to all enemies, and reduces their AP by 30%, and resets the cooldown on Divine Love, which is this skill over here. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to use our Sea Breeze Sonata, which resets our second skill, right? So let's take a look at this again. So now we can use our second skill on ourselves again, which then lowers our cooldown because the second skill lowers our cooldown, which then allows us to go back into our third skill. And knowing that this combo exists, this is something that we can abuse. But the thing is, you might be wondering, right? So how do I ensure that she focuses her second skill on herself? Because this is the skill that reduces all of my ability cooldowns by 1 turn. So this skill has to drop on me, right? It has to drop on me. If not, I will not be able to upkeep this sick combo over here. So that's a very good question, and that's something that we're going to explore for this video. It is actually quite interesting to see how her mechanics work, right? So there are 2 things to take note of to ensure that you know who you are using a second skill on. So let's take a look at the Kronos run over here. What you notice is during this auto combat phase here, she is only going to use it on herself, right? See, there you go. So Divine Love, she used it on herself. It is not a gimmick, okay? So this is the way her mechanics work. And the way her mechanics work is she would use it on the very first Esper on your lineup. So you have 5 different slots, right? She would prioritize your leader first, but if your leader is dead, she would then prioritize the next Esper in line. And if that Esper is dead as well, she would just prioritize whoever and whoever, right? So as you can see over here, she is still doing the same thing. She is still using that buff on herself. But there is also one other way that you can kind of like force her AI to use it on someone else, which is if your ally has a debuff. Or rather, if your ally, I believe the debuff has to be a stun. It has to be a very terrible debuff for her to focus it on your ally, because that skill actually cleanses debuffs at the same time. So that's how AI works. You either prioritize whoever's first, or use it on someone who needs to have their debuffs cleansed. So this combo is really good for her because it is very easy for you to keep throwing your third skills out like that, right? So knowing that the way I build her is going to be just very fast, right? Just give her a lot of speed and let her take as many turns as possible. She's going to keep reducing the AP of both the followers on the left and the right as well. But most importantly, the follower on the right. So the thing about the follower on the right is whenever it takes its turn, it's going to push the AP of the boss. And that's going to allow the boss to take more turns. But one of the problems with regards to the current way that Kronos is designed is that the more turns that Kronos takes, the more damage he's going to deal, and that damage can go up very significantly. So let's take a look at Kronos for a little bit. Let's see what changed. So over here you can take a look at Kronos for himself, take a look at strategy. Let's take a look at his passive death knell over here, right? So the lower the target's current HP, the higher the damage dealt by this attack. And if this attack slays the target, gains 1 turn. After a certain number of turns, increases the damage every turn. So his passive does more damage to your entire team the more turns that he takes. Or at least I believe that this is just the more turns that he takes and not the more turns that people take in total. But regardless whether does this focus on the boss or whether this focuses on every single entity in the fight itself, I think what's still very important is that you find a way to effectively make sure that their AP is reduced all the time so that as long as they don't take a turn, you're Gucci, right? So for example over here, we're just going to keep spamming our Divine Love and into our third skill combo, and that's most of the time going to be able to push down these 2 followers to the left, right? And by doing so, that's going to restrict the number of actions that Kronos can take, which is huge for your survivability. It's huge for your runtime as well. It's really good for, I guess, all kinds of players, right? You have free-to-play players, you have pay-to-win players. I feel like Eira has a lot of use over here in terms of just giving you a sustainable, consistent win rate. So that's pretty much it for why Eira is so good here. But that's not all, obviously, because if you watched my live streams and you see me use Eira for K16, you will notice that I did not use her at the leader spot. Now, it's a really good idea to use her at the leader spot because she's just going to keep focusing on herself, right? And just keep landing her AoE AP reductions and all that. But that is not necessarily the only way that you can build her, because like I said before, she focuses her second skill on the first unit in your lineup, which means that you can select whoever you want to receive her buffs by putting them on the leader spot. So for example, in my live streams, I actually put Sander at the leader spot, and that allows Sander to take a lot more turns, reduce his cooldowns a lot more frequently, and just allows him to spam his second and third skill a lot more effectively, which I think is an amazing way to use Eira as well. So there are some espers that you can put in a leader spot that will really work effectively with Eira. So apart from Sander, you can also choose to use Zora. Zora is also pretty good over there. You can also try to use espers like Hengrie to allow her to take more turns, to allow her heals to recharge more frequently, and at the same time give your entire team a HP leader buff, which is always helpful for the weaker players out there. So this is a very interesting esper that I think makes a lot of sense in K16 right now. She was not really that used in K10 before because you could just power through the entire K10 back then, and you had no true reason to bring supports after a certain period of time, right? Like after you reach a certain progression, you can just throw 5 DPS and that's gonna work, and in fact it's gonna be even more efficient. But noting that how K16 is very difficult right now, and I'm pretty sure a consistent clear is probably what's on the top of your priority list right now, you can consider using Eira. I feel like she's a really good option. And apart from that, you know, every other esper here, obviously they're good choices, but do you need to use all of them? Like for example, do you need to use Clara? Do you need to use White Tiger? That is obviously not true at all. You can definitely use something else, but your timing may not be as fast, like 1 minute 58 seconds for example, or your win rate may be a little bit lower, but just be careful of the espers they are bringing. So for example, apart from using Lincel, right, we can also use Liling. Liling is also pretty good. Now the reason why Liling is pretty good is because his third skill does an AoE damage that absorbs AP, which also helps with dealing with the followers, and I think the followers are just the main problem over here. And apart from Clara, you can also use Hengrie. Now the reason why I use Clara is because she has an AP push, which is quite big, but Hengrie works as well in terms of healing, right? So let's just take a look at how this works. And I'm gonna shut up for a second over here. Right, so there you go. That's the team with Liling and Hengrie. Pretty awesome. Not bad in my opinion. For a free-to-play team, that's pretty good. Apart from Liling, you can definitely use Jiangman. I think Jiangman is also very viable here. She's gonna lend a bit of poisons, a little bit of Nether Bloom debuffs and all that, which is also okay. It's not too bad. And 2 minutes 12 seconds, so it's definitely a little bit slower than the team that I used before, which is the sole reason why I'm using the other team, because it's just a lot faster. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, hopefully you guys learned something, hopefully you guys understand how to effectively participate in K16, because this is one very good strategy that you can use, which would definitely push your K16 runs to be a little bit more consistent, which I think is very important, right? Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, it really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Dislyte content. Now with that said, this has been Free to Play, and as always, I will see you in the next video.